Mayor Losser, you're the best dressed mayor in all of the county. You have a tie and a jacket every single day, and I can't muster more than a polo shirt. I emulate your.
I just want to. That's only because I just came from Homestead Hospital where they actually called us over there to do a proclamation for Nurses Week.
Oh, good. Well worth it.
This is probably only the second time I've been dressed the part in the last 7 weeks.
It seems like every time I see you, you're dressed the part.
The backdrop
yes.
helps. Yeah.
All right, guys, so it's 3:05, and I'm just going to get started, and we'll kind of pick up as we have new guests that have come in. So hi, everyone. My name is Brittany Bassan. I'm the Executive Director of ChamberSOUTH. Thank you all for joining us today for this extremely important community update. We have amazing partners on the phone. I really would like to recognize the Coral Gables Chamber of Commerce. I know Mark Trowbridge joined us on the phone today. And of course, we have so many incredible invited guests, and you'll be able to hear from all of them, but Mark Trowbridge and also Frank Balzabre from Mayor Carlos Jimenez's office is on the phone with us as well today. So thank you all for being here. And I'm going to kick it over to Mariano Martinez. He is the chairman of the board of directors for ChamberSOUTH. So I'll make quick remarks. Mariano.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. We're very excited to bring this programming to you today. I want to thank Dr. Webb and Carrie Black for collaborating with us today with the South Dade Chamber. We've got some great guests and leaders in our community. We thank them all for collaborating. The South Dade Coalition is here to really help all of South Dade, and we're proud to be a part of that and getting this out to the community. They've got some great information to share, so thank you all, and thank you to our board of directors and members for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you, Mariano. And now I'm going to ask South Dade Chairman of the Board of Directors, Dr. Joe Webb, to go and give some brief.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. It is definitely a pleasure. If the background is a little bit of honeydews here, I just left Publix. But hey, I'm just honored to be a part of this collaboration. I am honored to let you all know that there'll be so much more to come, and there's so much more we can do when we all come together. And just thanking all of the legislation and all individuals that are on here as we come together to come out of this thing better than when we started. I am excited to be here and excited to hear the news on what's to come. I also thank my board and all those that are involved here to, again, come together in South Dade, because that's what it's all about. When times are troubled, we come together, and that's what we're going to show as we come out of this thing. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Webb. And now we also have on the line South Dade President and CEO, Carrie Black. Carrie, if you'd like to make some remarks.
Hi, everyone. Brittany, I just want to thank you for putting all this together and being patient with me as I've been traveling. We've been talking for, 2 years now about doing collaborative efforts, and here we are doing them more than ever before, and we have a whole coalition of chambers throughout Miami-Dade County that are working together through all of the mayors and all of our commissioners, and like Dr. Webb said, it's exciting in the midst of such tragedy to see so many wonderful people and leaders coming together for one cause, and that is safety first, and whatever it is that we can do to get businesses reopened and up and running again. That's important to everybody. So I do look forward to hearing what our leaders have to say about how that might look in the next couple of weeks. Thank you.
Awesome. Carrie, thank you so much. And so we're talking a lot, and all of the information that's been going out regarding this has been the South Dade Municipal Coalition. So right now, our chairman of that group is Mayor Joe Corradino, who's going to give you a brief overview on what the South Dade Municipal Coalition is and how it works for you and what we do year-round, not only during times of COVID and global pandemics, but year-round working for our South Dade community. Mayor Corradino?
Yeah, Brittany, thank you very much. I'm Joe Corradino, the mayor of Pinecrest. I was a member of ChamberSOUTH and the chairman of ChamberSOUTH quite a while back. In 2007, ChamberSOUTH had what we called the Transportation Committee. And at the time, Mayor Tim Mirbot, myself, we thought maybe this was a good opportunity to get the cities in South Dade that surrounded US 1 to talk about transportation. So we got Pinecrest, Palmetto Bay, and Cutler Bay, and we started to have a conversation about transportation. Over the years, it kind of morphed into kind of an informal meeting place where we would take all the elected officials, any of the members of the chamber, any of the citizens that wanted to come in. We just meet once a month in Palmetto Bay, and thanks to Mayor Cunningham in their Perrine Cutler building, and just talk about the issues up and down the US 1 corridor that impacted us. And thank goodness, recently Mayor Losner from Homestead's been able to join us. We've started to be more inclusive and bring the chamber and the Homestead Chamber and the Economic Development Council. And now it's a very loose kind of think tank in a sense, where we just get together, talk about fresh ideas. We don't take positions on things. A lot of times, many of the cities will have different opinions on the issues that we talk about. And so we just want to make sure as a group of elected officials and neighbors that we are all looking at the same page of the playbook. We have a common set of information, a common set of facts, and that each of the people that are there can look at those facts and then go back to their constituents and make the best decision for them. So it's a kind of a low pressure, little organization where we just think about the future. And so far, so good. And that's me and us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mayor Corradino. I really appreciate that. So just a quick overview of how today's going to go. We have an amazing panel of speakers. We have State Representative Javier Fernandez, Commissioner Daniela Levine-Cava, Mayor Joe Corradino from Pinecrest, Mayor Karen Cunningham from Palmetto Bay. Unfortunately, Mayor Tim Muirbach could not join us today from the town of Cutler Bay, but we do have Councilmember Roger Coriat that will be giving us an update on what's going on in Cutler Bay. We have Mayor Stephen Losner from the city of Homestead, and we're expecting a representative from Mayor Wallace's office from Florida City, and Peter England with the Economic Development Council of South Dade. So I'm going to go ahead. Each speaker is going to be given about 3 to 5 minutes to give updates on what's happening in their district, what they're doing working for us. We're going to start off with State Representative Javier Fernandez. He sent me some slides that I'm going to put up on the screen here. So Representative, please take it away.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Pleasure to be with you. Thanks, Brittany, Chamber South, and all the chambers and the mayors for the invitation to participate. I'll quickly touch upon the 2 state-related issues. Number 1, unemployment, and then we'll get into the stay-at-home order modifications that were issued by the governor and that took effect earlier this week. On the unemployment front, just very quickly, we've got more than 1 million unique claims that have been confirmed at this point through the EO. We're tracking to make sure that that number is in fact accurate. We're just concerned about some possible underreporting given difficulties in the system. But to date, more than $900 million have finally been paid out to constituents in need of assistance. It's about 44% of the unique claims that have been paid to date. Slow progress. Those are mostly partial payments, with the average payout about $1,500 in combined federal and state benefits. So still more work to do there, but progress is being made on that front. On the stay-at-home orders, the governor modified his executive order. The stay-at-home order for all parts of the state, with the exception of South Florida, Palm Beach, Dade, and Broward counties, has been lifted. Seniors and folks who have underlying medical conditions have been advised to shelter in place as much as possible to avoid, since they're the most vulnerable to the impacts of COVID-19. But restaurants and other non-essential businesses have been allowed to open at 25% of their current capacity. And we've also allowed hospitals now in all counties to begin to provide for elective surgeries, with the proviso that they've got to make sure that if the trend lines change, they can quickly convert those elective procedure beds to COVID dedicated beds. We're monitoring a bunch of trend lines. The positivity rate in Florida continues to trend down at 7.9%, which is below the 10% threshold the WHO has seen as a kind of a key marker. We're also seeing total cases only increasing at 1.5%. Those are positive trend lines. Today, however, FDOH put out some information that's a little bit troubling, which with respect to new hospitalizations, 227 new cases, which is about 40% higher than the rolling 7-day average here, which is 163 cases per day of new hospitalizations. And also we saw a pretty significant uptick in reported deaths today at 68 deaths, which is about 47% higher than the 7-day rolling average of 46 deaths. So we will continue to monitor these trends. I think the governor has indicated he'll make further modifications to his executive orders if the trend lines indicate that the current action is exacerbating the COVID situation. And also testing capacity has been a focal point at the state level for expansion. We are hopeful that we can get to a total capacity of 33,000 daily tests across the state. Right now we're about 17,000 on average tests being performed. That's essential not only to deal with the current public health crisis, but also to deal with, I think, what is the underlying crisis of confidence in the public, and they're concerned about being able to go out safely, travel to Florida. Hopefully additional testing will help reassure folks that we're taking all the requisite measures so they can get to work safely, go out into the marketplace, visit our local businesses, adhering to social distancing and other guidelines without putting themselves or others at risk. So, Brittany, that's all I have for a quick update. If anyone has any questions, happy to take them now or later.
Awesome. Thank you, Representative Fernandez. And yes, with regards to questions, one of the big things with this, with today's update is the opportunity to ask questions directly to our local leaders. However, if you can please put those questions in the chat, and we will get to all of them towards the end of the call. We'll do our best to get through all of them. If you have any questions in the chat, and I will direct them to the appropriate representative, mayor, or commissioner. Okay, so again, thank you, Representative Fernandez. That was an amazing update. Commissioner Cava, it's your turn. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. I've just received an updated PowerPoint. We're trying to be up to the minute with everybody here. I'm going to send it to Sean McCracken, who is online with us, and he's going to try to split the screen. But until he does, I'm going to go on autopilot. So, all right, I've just sent it to you, Sean. I know it takes a minute to get there. Okay, a little inside baseball. Anyway, thank you so very much to Chamber South, South Dade Chamber, to my fellow electeds, and to the public, because I looked through the participants and many, many friends. I miss seeing you in person. These are kind of a poor substitute, but at least they're efficient. And, there's Sean, he's got it. All right, well, that's me, keep going. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so this is just a little map that shows you the incidents, and I know the cities are following it closely, and it's true that we have a very high incident in my zip code, 33157. It turns out that's because of Jackson South. Yay, Jackson South, not because we are a walking disaster right here. But of course, we know everyone could possibly carry this virus, so we all have to be careful. Next slide. Just to say, yeah, the county has particularly focused on feeding the elderly, and now increasingly feeding others who are without any source of income, unable to feed their families. So we're up to, probably close to 3 million meals. We're delivering about 80,000 meals per day. Anybody over 65 should call 311 if they would like to have a daily meal delivered, and that's an important thing we're doing. We are also not evicting people throughout the county, residential or commercial. We're also not turning off water, and FPL is not turning off electricity. We do have weekly major distribution sites in the South End. It's at the Air Reserve Base. We also have a Tropical and Amelia Earhart. And then through the efforts of many, and I was a big advocate, we started purchasing produce from our local farmers, and that has really been a great win-win for everybody. Here we are socially distancing, participating in a food distribution event in Cutler Bay. We need the federal government to open up our disaster SNAP program. This is something that helped us a lot post-Irma. Even though SNAP or food stamps has increased a bit, it is quite insufficient. And now we do want to encourage people who have never thought of these things before to please go and apply for food stamps, Medicaid, and other programs. Okay, next slide. We're at least at 20% of lost jobs. Now, we know that the unemployment system is a disaster. Representative Fernandez told you a little bit about that. We've been pushing hard for retroactivity, which was approved, but also to move quicker. The independent contractors, gig workers are all eligible under the federal, not under the state, but they have to apply through the state doorway. Because it was so backed up, we've been distributing paper applications, and over 10,000 have been picked up at libraries, along with now SNAP Medicaid applications. We're also accepting pet food donations because we do not want to have a problem of abandoned pets. Now people can also use the library internet services from the outside of the library. Okay, next slide. So we've already talked about this. Keep going. There's now a lawsuit. There's skip that slide. There's an investigation going on of the problems. Do not forget to take care of yourselves emotionally. This is not, we're social creatures. We should not be socially distant, just physically distant. Let's be sure to reach out to each other and take good care of ourselves. There's lots of resources for us to help. Okay, next slide. So looking ahead, I've started talking about reopening responsibly. So it's responsible reopening and recovery. And I have a new, let's skip this slide. I have a new framework that I'm going to be rolling out with you today. How will we know when it's ready to reopen? Keep going, because maybe we have these slides. Keep going. Yes, thank you very much. How will we know? Well, we have to be monitoring our new infections, and we should have a 14-day decline in hospitalizations and deaths with a 3-day rolling average. Folks, we're not there yet. We should have fewer than 2 new COVID patients admitted per 100,000 residents. That means fewer than 54 new COVID patients per day admitted. Folks, we're not there yet. Okay, next slide. We have to have testing, massive testing. You know, I just heard Representative Fernandez say we have 17,000 statewide. I guess that's a total. I don't know. But we should have 30 diagnostic tests per every 1,000 residents per month. In Miami-Dade, that would be 81,000 residents per month getting tests. We are not in the ballpark, folks. In addition, we need to be maintaining those sites in a way that people can get to. We are doing some home testing now. We need to have walk-up testing, not just drive-through testing. And we need to keep track and do aggressive tracing. These are the things that were successful in the countries where they were able to curb the spread. For example, South Korea. So we need, for contact tracers, those are like sleuth investigators that talk to everybody who has contracted the disease. We need 30 of those per 100,000. So it's about 810 that we would need in Miami-Dade County. Folks, we could do this. We just have not committed to doing it yet. And these will be necessary to keep track of the infection or transmission rate if and when we do reopen gradually. So next slide, please. We also need isolation facilities. We only have just a few of these. We've isolated some of our homeless and some of our healthcare workers so they don't have to go home and risk infecting their families, but we do not have isolation quarantine available to all the people that effectively cannot self-isolate. And we know they are exposing others in their homes and in their communities. Okay. We know that fully 40% of the workforce is essential. That's 40% of the people that are still going to work on a regular basis. And we haven't equipped them with the resources necessary for this pandemic. So doctors and nurses have fallen ill, our transit workers, correction officers, our meat packing, you've all heard of what a disaster that is, other frontline workers. So we have not done what we need to do to protect those essential workers, and that is exposing all of us to undue risk. So before we can responsibly reopen and recover, we have to mobilize a pandemic resilient economy with all the things that I've said so that we can reduce this to no more than 1 transmission per affected individual. Next slide. We'll just, too much to cover, but these are some of the things that we need to do. I think they're self-evident now. Next slide. Okay, this is a summary. Just to let you know what where the public is on this. New poll, people are worried. We can't just reopen and expect the economy to bounce back. People are going to vote with their feet. 54% still have major health concerns. Obviously, 33% are predominantly worried about the economy, as should we all be. Some equally, so we have a lot of trouble. Next slide. I think we're done. Okay. This was my first time presenting this slide. This is a summary. Next slide. We'll just wrap it up here and be available for for any questions. Okay, thank you so very much, everybody.
Thank you, Commissioner Cava. Extremely informative. Thank you so much. I know there's a wealth of information that's coming out from you and the Board of County Commissioners and the county. So thank you for providing all that information. And we will have all of this, Commissioner Cava, available to share. If anyone wants to reach out and get copies of the presentations, be connected directly to her office.
Yeah.
For more information, we're happy to do so. So our next speaker is going to be Mayor Joseph Corradino with the Village of Pinecrest. Mayor Corradino.
Thank you, Brittany. I'll be brief. The Village of Pinecrest is doing what every other city is doing. We basically were able to take all of our people that could work at home and sent them to work at home. We attempted to keep our essential services open, police, building department, those types of things, and we've been able to do that. We're processing building permits. Our police are at full force, and I think we have some excellent compliance. In the Village of Pinecrest, we would check our construction sites and our retail establishments that were essential and open, and we'd ferret out any complaints. And what we found was that they were responding very well. There were very few facilities that we needed to shut down over the course of the last 7 weeks. And so we were able to join the county and open our parks for the very passive activities that they're open for: walking, jogging, singles tennis, and those types of things. I play a dual role. We've been coordinating with all the mayors through the Miami-Dade County League of Cities, and the League of Cities has been working with the county to get updates of the community. Mayor Jimenez has put together a working group, actually about 7 small working groups, to study a variety of non-essential indoor spaces like hotels, restaurants, manufacturing, retail, small businesses, museums, office space, those types of things. And they are, in each of those working groups, there are embedded medical professionals who are working with industry professionals in each of those groups to develop a draft set of rules that eventually would be used for the potential opening of those types of things. I haven't seen those rules. I don't know if they are what state they're in yet, but eventually they'll be announced. They've committed to the fact that we wouldn't be opening until we started to meet the federal government's, I think, phase 1 criteria. Like Commissioner Cava said, those metrics where you're having declining cases and such. So at least we're working, or the county's working on those types of things. I'm assuming that each of the cities will have the opportunity to be more restrictive, but not less restrictive than the county, should any of that stuff happen. We also are monitoring the health numbers. You know, obviously at the onset of this, the goal was to preserve the capacity of the healthcare system. I think the medical professionals believe that has been done at this point in time, and obviously could go back anytime if you were to open too soon. The troubling things to me, as Commissioner Cava stated, were that the hospitalizations just haven't seemed to go down after they've reached a peak or a plateau, and it's been close to almost a month at a very high sustained level, kind of near the top of what the hospitalizations are. And even while the cases are declining every day, yesterday we had they accounted for more deaths in the county than any other single day since we started this. And actually yesterday, the average number of deaths per day hit a peak. So it appears that, you know, we are still searching for the peak that is out there. And I completely agree with Commissioner Cava in the sense that I think every gain that we have had as you look at this pandemic has been through our social distancing. And the weakest part of our response has been the testing. And, you know, I would agree. Pinecrest is searching for real FDA certified tests, and there are not enough out there. There are antibody tests that are uncertified. They're almost testing tests, and they're horribly unreliable and expensive. And it's hard to see going forward without an adequate supply of tests. And so I would completely agree with Commissioner. We're going to eventually reach a crossroads where we're going to have to make some harsh decisions. And so I think we all need to be really pressing for those tests so that when the health numbers reach the point where we can open up, that we have the tests in place. If not, you know, it's going to be a dangerous situation. That's my report. I'll answer questions if anybody has. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor Cordino. And just a reminder to everyone that's joining us as we've joined late, if you have questions, put them in the chat. We will address all the questions at the end of the program. Next, we're going to move on to Mayor Karen Cunningham with the Village of Palmetto Bay. Mayor?
Hey there, good afternoon, and I'm going to try not to be redundant to what some of my colleagues have already reported. I did want to give a shout out to all the nurses and teachers. We're celebrating both weeks this week, and on the heels of that, we'll have Mother's Day, which I think is very appropriate for these largely female occupations. And I also wanted to give a shout out to Vice Mayor Sue Loisel as I was scrolling through looking at all the beautiful faces that we've missed over the last many months. I saw the Vice Mayor is on the line, so I wanted to make sure she got a little bit of a shout out as well. Lastly, just in terms of thank yous, I do want to thank Mayor Cordino, Mayor Mirbot, Mayor Lossner, Mayor Wallace. It has been a great comfort, and of course our commissioner, but it has been a great comfort to me to be so closely connected. So I'm so glad that this coalition was already formed and functioning, because I've really relied heavily as a first-time mayor on my colleagues, so I appreciate that. Palmetto Bay update, our village parks, unlike Pinecrest, village parks in Palmetto Bay are closed. I know it comes with some mixed messages from our community. Many people want them open, many people want them to remain closed. We made the decision based on the information that we were receiving, and some other facts, such as Cutler Bay parks were going to remain closed. There are a lot of restrictions, which if you're out and about in some of the county parks, you're aware of. Playgrounds are still closed, masks are mandatory, social distancing rules still apply, and we wanted to take into consideration exposing our staff who would have to do the enforcement. So we'll see as we kind of move forward. I think Mayor Cordino said it, but I think it bears repeating just for the general public, that we can't, as a city, weaken the emergency orders from the county or state, but we can strengthen them. And that's what we opted to do in this case, to have a united voice. I do want to encourage the residents of Palmetto Bay and all those folks that come into Palmetto Bay to continue using sidewalks and bike paths and the quieter streets that we have right now. We also have some amazing county parks that are open, and that's Deering Estate and Sadowski and Deering Point. I believe they call it Deering Point, where you can launch your kayaks, so right next to Snowden's Bridge. Palmetto Bay is also open for permits. There's a little process. You can check out our website to check that out. And I believe new construction is coming up next. We have an interim manager that is dealing with the day-to-day operations of our city, especially during our state of emergency. The village has had, and I think we were probably one of the first to begin with the virtual meetings. We've taken care of a lot of emergency issues, but I also want folks to know that we're taking care of city business as well, which I think is important. We had a meeting on Monday. We're moving forward with our city manager search. The city is working very diligently to make sure we're prepared for the hurricane season, which I keep saying it's coming no matter what. So we're doing our drain cleaning and tree trimming, all that other good stuff. And I also want to thank our Board of County Commissioners, which will lead into the next great news I want to share with you, for being willing to discuss business items. And so thank you, Commissioner, because I think the regular day-to-day business is becoming equally important in our small communities and across the county as the dealing with the immediate concerns, which are very important too, of this crisis. So great news, and I'm sure the commissioner will probably get some questions on it. But yesterday, the traffic improvements on Old Cutler were approved by the Board of County Commissioners unanimously. This is really cool because the improvements on Old Cutler Road, which you know is a historic road, is going to potentially reduce congestion by 35 to 50%. This is really a first step and she can a little bit later maybe give a little bit more detail on that. There are a lot of people to thank for that, but I thank her staff of the Department of Transit and Public Works, the county department, our small but mighty Public Works department, and our director there, Dio Torres, and of course, Ramon Soria of Marlin Engineering, who was actually the brainchild behind this circle component for Old Cutler Road. You'll be hearing more about it. And while we're working on business and we're separated, as the commissioner said, physically, we are trying to create community in the village of Palmetto Bay, which to me is extremely important. So we've got a lot of activities coming up. We're celebrating our seniors. We're going to be doing drive-bys, drive-by of all of our seniors here in the village of Palmetto Bay on May 20th. If anyone wants to jump on that caravan, you can let me know, because I think that should be fun. We're going to put yard signs in their yards. We have door decorating contests for our 5th and 8th graders. And we are going to, Christ Fellowship has been amazing. They've been doing weekly Monday food distributions for about 350 folks. My colleague Patrick Fiore and I have taken some of those packages to some of our shut-ins. But on this Saturday, right before Mother's Day, which I think is perfect timing, with Christ Fellowship and Feeding South Florida and Senator Jose Javier Rodriguez, and of course my friend Vansa Lupus and our council as well, we're going to be coming together at Christ Fellowship at 9 a.m. and we are going to be doing a food distribution there. And then last but not least, I know everyone is aware, but the Blue Angels are going to be coming to Miami. You can check their Twitter feed tomorrow to find out exactly what their path will be, because I know that's going to be kind of exciting for everybody to see. So thank you. That concludes my update, and I look forward to any questions from those that are online.
Thank you, Mayor Cunningham, for that incredible update. Appreciate it. As we move down our South Dade US 1 corridor, fortunately, we don't have Mayor Marabot on the line with us, but we do have Councilman Roger Coriat. So, Council Member, if you could give us a quick update, just about 3 to 5 minutes on what's happening over in in Cutler Bay. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. I 100% was not expecting to be speaking at this session, but I'm happy to update you on the town as best I can. So I'm going to go real quick. The town remains in operation, of course. 80% of our staff is working remotely. Our building department is open 8 to 11, Monday through Friday by appointment only. And I should mention that we have been booked every single day as far as appointments. Code compliance continues to operate on its normal function from 8 to 5. We actually still have people that are doing construction and repairs without permits, things like that. So, we're trying to keep tabs on what goes on in our town. Our circulator bus continues to run at a lower volume than average, but there are people that without it would not be able to get from one place to another. So we're keeping that service running for them. We are looking for ways to help businesses, restaurants transition as we gradually reopen. As we receive direction from the state and from the county, we want to have something in place to help our local businesses get back going. As Mayor Cunningham mentioned a few moments ago, our parks are also closed, but as she also mentioned, we do have county options and we have trails, sidewalks. I actually rode my bike to Black Point a couple of days ago, and it was a lovely evening, taking advantage of some unseasonably cool weather. Other than that, we are working with Southridge and Cutler Bay High School to help recognize graduating seniors. Some of you may know I'm actually a high school teacher myself, and I teach mostly seniors. So I'm hearing I feel bad for them. They're missing out on prom, grad bash, all the things that we all got to enjoy and that everybody gets to enjoy this time of their life. So we're going to do what we can to help them, feel good and be recognized. Other than that, let me look. I have my cheat sheets right here. Our next council meeting is scheduled for May 20th, Wednesday, May 20th, 7 p.m. We did have our first virtual meeting in April, and of course there were some technical glitches, but I think the agenda went through smoothly and we were all able to get our business done. So our next meeting is as regularly scheduled for the 20th. Finally, this is something I know that Mayor Mirabot brings up at all these meetings, the census. the census is underway. And I just want to throw some quick numbers at you. Back in 2010, Cutler Bay had about a 70% response rate to the census. Currently, we're at about 64.7%. And I do want to recognize and laud Pinecrest, which is at 68% response, and Palmetto Bay at 71%. So we're working on catching up with you guys. You know, we want 90% and above from all of South Dade. We are historically underrepresented, and we need to change that. So do what you can to get people to do it online, by paper. I did mine weeks ago. So do what you can. I think that's the gist of it. As everyone else has said, if you have questions, please send them, and I'll make sure that Mayor Mirbot sees them all so that he can actually respond to you as well. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Councilman. We appreciate that update. Sorry for putting you on the spot there, but thank you again for being here and being present. Now we're going to move on to Mayor Losner with the City of Homestead. Mayor Losner.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Perfect.
Okay. Well, I'll borrow a couple of phrases from my fellow mayors. First, I'll be brief in the words of Mayor Corradino. In the words of Mayor Cunningham, I'll try not to be too redundant. As our neighboring municipalities, we are up and running. Our Development Services Department, staff members who could go home and work remotely have been doing so for seems like 7 or 8 weeks now, and it's working well. We're having virtual council meetings. I'll continue my charter review committee meeting starting next week as well. By the way, Mayor Corradino, a continuation of our moratorium workshops. I'm glad to hear that Frank Balzabre from Mayor Jimenez's office is on the line today. I think it's important that we continually have that information and an update of where we are on those benchmarks it'll take to trigger a reopening of Miami-Dade County on par with the most of the rest of the state other than Southeast Florida. My community is ready to go back to work. We need to go back to work. We're already aware of many long-term multi-generational businesses that won't be reopening, as well as some of our newer businesses. And we are still largely a mom and pop community. So we need to make sure that we have the information to convey those benchmarks and status so that we can provide that glimmer of hope or light at the end of the tunnel. We are, we sort of like hurricane recovery. We survived the hurricane, but the recovery may kill us. And, we've been focused on, okay, what is going to face us after the quarantine, after the pandemic. And like other communities, we have in our pipeline a CRA meeting in a couple of weeks, the consideration of a pretty significant fund to provide commercial and residential rental assistance to our residents who live within our defined community redevelopment area. I think that's important both for business and residents to have that sense of stability and comfort that they go back to work, they can help catch up on their rent and move forward. And I'm hopeful and certainly advocating that we do what we need to do to be reopened on par with the rest of the state as quickly as possible. One thing that I'm seeing here, though, is I think an indicator that people need and want to go back to work, but a sense of desperation is that up until now, we haven't had a lot of code enforcement issues in terms of violations of the lockdown and restricted businesses, but we're seeing little hints here and there of businesses putting a little card in the window of the hair salon, call me for an appointment, here's where you can reach me. Almost from where I'm sitting now through the window of my office, I can see an impromptu car wash in the driveway of residential property with a little handmade sign where a fella's offering car washes for $30, and certainly it's not appropriate, not fair to those who have the bricks and mortar business and have been established. So, those, we're starting to see pressure there on people who really feel they need to do what they need to do. But beyond that, we're still operating, and I'm thankful for the collegiality and the cohesiveness that I have with my mayors to the north and the one mayor to the south. As a new mayor, not new to public office, but as a new mayor, I'm thankful for the group discussions that we've had on many Sunday afternoons and otherwise for a couple of months now. That's what I've got.
Thank you, Mayor Losner. I appreciate that update. I believe we have Mayor Wallace on the phone. Mayor Wallace? You're not on mute, so if you just wanted to start talking with your...
Hello?
There you are, perfect.
This is Mayor Wallace. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, yes, sir.
Okay, I was muted out. I'd like to say that Florida City Hall and governmental operations are pretty much back to as normal as can be under the circumstances. All municipal services are being provided. However, our administrative offices, we're working with a staff that's many people, whenever possible, are working from home, but the building itself is totally functional, all departments. Our building department continues to go on as usual. Most of our inspectors are 1099, so they're not really required to come into the building much. They can pretty much do the inspections based on remote communications with the office, so that's working out well. We also, our utility office, which is the main office for people coming to City Hall, I'm happy to say through a lot of encouragement, we've gotten people to use the drop box after hours as well as pay online. And we hope that continues even after this is over. But by doing so and getting people into paying bills that way, we've significantly dropped the amount of people coming into City Hall. And that's a good thing. And it's more convenient for our citizens as well. On the park issue, we're following the county's lead with regard to parks. We opened our parks this past Monday. We didn't open any of the top parks, but we opened the water-based parks of Fasulo and Pine Tree Lake and our main park, Lauren Roberts. They're all open and being monitored by parks personnel who've been repurposed to actually be at the parks during the hours they're mostly used. We're happy to say that most people are cooperating. We have them only traveling in one direction so they don't meet each other. We're encouraging them to wear masks, but the spacing has been such from our observation that it hadn't appeared to be a problem because they're not very close. It's not a congested situation. And so that seems to be working out. And I'm very happy that our people are being reasonable as they approach the reopening of the park. So far, knock on wood, that's gone out pretty well and pleasantly at best. We have the business community seems to be cooperating for the most part, but like Mel Losner mentioned, code enforcement has had to go out and deal with some people who were not following the rules, and that'll always be the case. But by and large, I think most of the community understands the seriousness of the situation that we're in and why we're limiting contacts. And so that's going to go on. Our CRA, we're looking into help for the businesses that keep their employees. We're trying to tie the two together where it's okay to help the business, and we're committed to doing that. But at the same time, we want to make sure that there's a direct line of benefits to some of the employees of that business. That's a work in progress. As far as rental assistance, we're looking at that. We haven't got enough information on it to decide, how that's going to work. Like Steve said, it's something that's worthy of looking into. But Florida City, I'm happy to report that we seem to be holding our own. I have the interesting situation of being in on 2 meetings every week. First, there's the city managers who meet on Tuesday, and I get a perspective being a manager of Florida City as well as to the the nuts and bolts of operating the city. And then on Thursdays, the mayors meet and we talk about policies. Well, I tell you, sometimes I worry about some of the things that Manager Wallace says on Tuesday. Well, I'm more worried about what things Mayor Wallace says on Monday or Thursday that Manager Wallace has to implement on Tuesday. It's interesting to have both perspectives. And I'd like to commend Frank from the mayor's office. He's been a tremendous help in giving us updated information from the county, and then that's been helpful. I'm going to be brief, but one thing that concerns me is testing once again. For the time we had testing in Florida City, only 1/3 of the people that showed up were actually tested. We averaged about 200 to 230 a day showing up, and we averaged about 70 or 75 actually being tested. So there's a tremendous need and desire out there of people to be tested that the resources won't allow. So I'm worried about people who have not shown any symptoms or met any of the criteria for testing, which is 2/3 of the people who tried to get tested. And so when we get into talking about opening up, boy, I believe that everybody needs to work. And my heart goes out to people in that situation. But I am not convinced yet that based on what I've heard, that we have the information to establish that we won't hurt our community in the long run by our desire to get them back to work as much as we would. I'm torn on both issues. I want everybody to go back to work, but I don't want them to get sick and die either. So we got to be real careful in terms of making these decisions with a view toward economics, but I tell you, the health of the community is even more important. So as long as we make the decisions with science, with considered information that makes sense, and I'm going to be trying to get back to work reasonably is the word I would use. But that's it. We're a small city. Not a lot happens from week to week, but we're now looking toward the hurricane seasons as well, and hoping that we're blessed with another slow year there. That's all we need right now is a hurricane in the middle of a virus situation. So good luck, everybody, and stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mayor Wallace. We appreciate that update. And then as we try to move on, and we have a few minutes left, but we definitely want to get to questions. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll be addressing all of the questions. We do have Peter England. He is the Executive Director of the Economic Development Council of South Dade. They're doing great work right now, currently during this pandemic as well. So Peter, if you'd like to make a couple of brief remarks, no more than 3 minutes, please. Thank you. Peter?
Am I?
There you are. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Brittany, and thanks to the South Dade Chamber, ChamberSOUTH, and the South Dade Municipal Coalition for putting this webinar on. As you know, our mission is job creation in South Miami-Dade County, and right now what we're trying to do is to hang on to what we've got. I know there's a great deal of anxiety among business owners as to when their businesses are going to be able to reopen, and we understand that. But as Mayor Wallace pointed out appropriately, public safety really is the overarching issue, and until such time as you can take care of yourself, your employees, and your customers, it could be premature. We're trying to look at the situation industry by industry in terms of what can come back and when, and the CDC is giving us some guidance in that direction. But what we've done is to put out a questionnaire to businesses in South Dade, trying to get establish a trend as to what exactly is happening on the ground. There's a lot of research going on, but frankly, we need local research, exactly what's taking place, so we can plan for the future. Short term, we are working with all of the municipalities to try and get a list of their unfunded infrastructure projects, so that we can get that to our congressional delegation. Hopefully in this next stimulus bill, there will be funding for infrastructure, and we want to be at the head of the line when that money comes down. The construction industry has been identified as one that can come back early and quickly, and we want to put people to work as well as restart our economy. So We're hopeful for the best. We're looking forward to a future that we hope in some respects can be even better than the one we left. So that's my brief report. I'll take questions if there are any.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter. Okay, so now we're going to move into a couple of questions. I'm going to go through everything that was asked. I know some of them were answered, but we can just go through them. I think the first one probably directed towards Commissioner Cava. Is there a timeline for Miami-Dade County to enter phase 1 of reopening?
Thank you so much. And this is what we all want to know. Just to be clear, Mayor Jimenez is our strong mayor, our executive mayor, and he is leading the decisions here. He has gotten input from the community, but this is something that he is deciding. It is not really official policy of the commission. And of course, for the first 5 or 6 weeks of this, the commission was not even meeting. So I just want to be clear. That having been said, I did move to adopt the orders that he had promulgated. But going forward, I'm sure there will be some controversy about reopening. As to the parks, I personally think we could have left the passive parks open. So, I don't think that was a difficult matter. We did hire 400 additional people to monitor activity in the parks. I think the cities chose not to reopen, the ones that did, partly because of the level of monitoring that would be required. And so that's well understood. And certainly, as Mayor Wallace said, nothing where there's contact with equipment, not the top areas, basically where people have to be in close proximity and touching equipment, that's a no-no. So just passive walking, running, and so on is appropriate. The guidelines for each sector of the economy reopening has been developed in partnership with McKinsey consultants. Those have not been widely circulated, but they are being finalized and refined. But the mayor has not in any way announced a timeline. We've heard that hospitality and restaurants will open sooner with the spacing requirements that would be directed. And of course, a hotel could allow people to stay in each room with the proper disinfection and still not have common areas open. So we've heard a lot of discussion about that. We also know that Mayor Gelber is not eager to open up Miami Beach until after Memorial Day. So I can safely say assuredly that the beaches will certainly not open before then. Whether they'll open thereafter, I don't know, and has to do with the monitoring capabilities as well. Okay, we are prepping, I guess you would say, for phase 1 without any specific date. And then phase 2 would be based on the hospitalizations, to be monitoring the curve and to make sure that we're staying flat and not having the increases. I did not say earlier in my presentation the very big important part of all of this, which is hospital capacity, healthcare system capacity. To be safe, we want to have 30% reserve ICU beds, ventilators, in case we do experience a surge from gradual reopening. Right now, we have been able to monitor and make sure we have a good supply, but we want to be sure that we do not overwhelm our healthcare system if we reopen. Phase 3 would be everything is open and we can move through the different phases. So again, no specific timelines at this time.
Thank you, Commissioner Cava. I'm going to keep you spotlighted because the second question is also directed towards you, and I think you answered it briefly in the chat. I'll give you an opportunity to expand a little bit more. With the lack of revenue in the county, do you foresee a partial government shutdown as revenue continues to be exhausted?
Yeah. So, the cities have not yet received direct aid from the federal government. And we are certainly, I am advocating, I'm endorsing that municipalities be able to directly receive aid. But above 500,000 through the CARES Act, there is direct aid. We've already been assured enough transit funding to make up for the deficits. The airport is coming in for some substantial money. We have our port and our airport are moving towards more cargo to offset the loss of passenger revenue. And by the way, some of these cruise lines are proposing to open in July or August. So, of course, those are proprietary funds. We are expecting FEMA to reimburse us for the meals and other direct assistance. And we are looking right now at about $150 million shortfall. We do have reserves in the county. Our property tax, which is the main source of revenue for our general operation, is not expected to experience a very big hit because those bills were out and due in March, right before the pandemic hit. So probably for the next fiscal year, which starts October 2020, we're not going to see as big an impact, but we'll obviously have to plan ahead. And once we see what diminution of property values occurs, that will mean we'll have to readjust into the future.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Commissioner.
Yeah.
This question is directed towards State Representative Javier Fernandez. And again, I think you answered it in the chat, but I'm going to allow you to elaborate. It's again related to unemployment. We have someone that applied for unemployment over a month ago and wants to know what's being done to accelerate the process of unemployment applications.
Yeah, and my apologies to Philip. It's been a miserable process, and to many other folks who may be listening. We got a lot of work to do still. There are measures being taken to accelerate the processing of claims. We have seen some real progress, I think, in the last 2 weeks. The payments that have been issues I mentioned in the chat are for the most part partial payments. And we finally now have finalized the process for folks who are gig workers and who previously were not eligible to actually come into the process and apply and get the federal benefit that they're entitled to under the CARES Act. So there has been progress. Processing times are still slow. It's important to give some context. Under the best of times, not in the midst of that pandemic, it typically takes the average claimant under our base system 3 weeks to get their benefit processed. So that is kind of as a backdrop. You're probably a couple of weeks away from seeing full benefits issued for the backlog, at least that's in place as of today, which again is over 1 million unique claims. Going forward, we've got some challenges in the Unemployment Trust Fund. As you've heard in the presentations, we expect to have some sectors impacted for a very long time. Hospitality sector is one that will be impacted here for longer than many others. And so we expect that, we have asked as a Democratic caucus for a special session to talk about these unemployment insurance issues. And one issue that will come up is, do we need to set aside some more funding to pay claims and extend the term of this benefit, which is only 12 weeks. The income to the end of under the current calendar will take us somewhere between 26 and 39 weeks. So extension of benefits, increasing the base amount are items that have been raised for discussion, as we expect to provide people relief for a lot longer than we're authorized to right now.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Representative Fernandez. And I know that also in the chat you put there the line for your office. If anyone wants to talk to State Representative Javier Fernandez and get assistance directly from his office, 305.
Actually my cell, so you can just call me there.
His cell phone, 305-761-2274. There we go. Thank you, Representative Fernandez. I don't see any other questions in our chat, so I'm going to start wrapping it up. It's 4:02, so we're doing really great on time. I cannot say how grateful I am to have such an incredible group of hands-on, active community leaders that are working for us. Thank you to every single one of you for the work that you've done. You've been so accessible. You've been so available. You know that we are working tirelessly behind the scenes for us, and that's we're extremely grateful. Our entire community is extremely grateful. Our South Dade Municipal Coalition is very strong. Your chambers are open for business. Your elected officials are working extremely hard behind the scenes. We're all here. We're all working for you. I don't know who just unmuted. If there's someone that wants, okay, no. We're all working extremely hard for you. So if there's anything that we can do, please reach out. But again, thank you so much to our wonderful elected officials for everything that you're doing. And as a quick update on ChamberSOUTH side, we're going to be putting together another town hall session with our state representatives and state senators, so more on the state of Florida level. So we'll keep you posted on that as details become available. But again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And 404, we'll call it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.